Welcome back to this episode of In the Garden. Well, actually in the garage. We're just in the garden now. This is number 4 in our In the Garden series, remodeling this garden. There's 3 other videos in front of this one. If you hadn't seen them, go check them out. What we've got done now is the center block wall is done. We've got our corners poured, and I'll walk you through how we did that. Also, we made a change to our wall in the back. I said in I think episode 3, I believe, I wasn't going to make any changes to it until we got more of the garden together so I could get a better look at it. But this popped into my head, and I knew it would look good because I already had an idea of what I wanted to do after I made this change. So I believe we've got our finished product as far as the wall goes. With treated wood, you need to let it set for, I mean, it depends on how freshly it was treated and, you know, how wet it still is. Anywhere from 6 weeks to, you know, a few months, 3 months, 4 months, and let it get dry enough to stain. We're not going to leave this treated wood this color. It'll be stained, and to match. I mentioned in the video before this what we're going to be doing with the porch back there. So this wall and the wood and all that will match the porch real nice. But you have to let this treated stuff dry out for quite a while, and, you know, let it sort of bake in the sun before you do any staining, because the stain won't take. It won't accept the stain, you know, because it's full of treatment, you know, pressure treated. Let it dry out a while, then you can stain it. Basically what we did, I'll get you turned around here. Basically what I did, I took this Sure Ply, and what it is it's basically 1/4 inch thick plywood. You can get it at Lowe's, Home Depot. I brought the wall in, all of my straight, you know, areas. I went ahead and like over here, I went ahead and laid these blocks, and all this back in here, and that up against the corner back there. All the straights, I went ahead and laid all that block and left the corners for last. That way I knew exactly what I would be dealing with. And so I took some of that, what I mentioned a minute ago, is 1/4 inch thick Sure Ply. Was perfect for pouring this form down here. And all I did was I started back here with the Sure plywood and bent it around over here to the straight, and then just put blocks, just laid loose blocks against the outside of it to hold it in place. And then I went ahead and mortared in these bricks here. And what I did was I basically closed it in back here. I really wasn't concerned at all with the placement, other than it making a closed section back here to keep the concrete from pouring out the back. And my Sure Ply was up here, held in place with the blocks, and basically just started pouring concrete. I mixed it a bag at a time, and I mixed it pretty wet. I wanted to be able for it to go all the way down, you know, to the bottom down here. And basically all you do is pour it in there, and then on the outside of your sure ply, just sit here, you know, and bounce it around, and you'll see the level of your concrete here start dropping as it's filling up the voids down at the bottom of your form. That way you don't have places that are missing in your concrete, voids down there that after the concrete dries, you'll have holes in your concrete, you know, where the concrete didn't pour all the way down in. So that's tapping it on the outside of it is sort of like, you know, when they pour industrial walls, they'll stick a vibrator all the way down to the bottom of their concrete wall and turn it on, and it'll vibrate inside that concrete, and it basically shifts the concrete down and works the bubbles up to the top. Well, with a 16-inch wall, you don't have a whole lot you have to worry about, but you still want to you know, shake up the outside of that form there, so that everything bounces, you know, slides down to the bottom and fills up everything, so you have a nice surface. We have to have a pretty decent surface on the front of our form, because our veneer stone is going to have a pretty decent surface to stick to. You use like a contractor's glue that comes in a tube, you know, and you'll basically glue that stuff to the front. So in order for that glue to work, it's got to have a pretty decent surface to adhere to, so that your stone stays in place and, you know, keeps it from lifting away from the surface. So I think we did a pretty good job there. You know, I've mentioned probably in more than one video, I am not a mason, I'm not a landscaper, I'm not you know, I don't work with wood, I don't have wood tools, I work with cars. But I think I've got enough common sense to do what needs to be done, and things I'm unsure of, I'll do research, and, you know, it typically gets me through. I've probably the last time that I laid center block, I was a sophomore in high school, and that's more years than I care to remember. But I got the gist of it, and they turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. The next thing, I believe I probably still got a week to 2 weeks before my stone veneer gets here. Still haven't located caps for the top of the blocks. I've got more options now. I'm starting to find out what all's out there for me to choose from. So I'm narrowing it down. But I believe our next big move, I've got to run my the electric. I've got to run it out here for my lamp. And then I've got to have a load of dirt brought in, and we'll backfill this whole thing. By then the stone should be here, and weather permitting, we'll go ahead and put the stone on. I believe I've decided how I'm going to go about doing it. I think it comes in 24 by 36 inch panels, and of course my wall is 16 inches high, and I ordered 11 panels. And let's see if I can explain this. Every 2 panels will make a third panel, because the panel is 24 inches tall, the wall is 16 inches tall. So I'll be able to cut 8 inches off the top of each panel, and if I do that twice, 2 panels will make my third panel, and I believe 11 panels will be enough to do the whole wall. I hope so, because it takes a while for that stuff to get here. I ordered from Antico Elements online It's anticoelements.com. If you'll go there, they're some of the cheapest that I found. I believe I got them on sale for $72 a panel, I believe. But I have seen panels. The most expensive ones I saw, I believe, were $108 a panel. What you're paying for is simplicity. What you're paying for is in the time savings. It is really, really hard to find a true stonemason anymore. You know, most brick masons don't even do stone anymore. Around this area anyway, it's really hard to find a true mountain stone mason. Most of them old guys have stopped doing that work, stopped working. Most of them that used to do it back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, they've all retired, and nobody really picked it up because the companies, these stone veneer companies, sort of staked a claim to that, and they didn't leave a whole lot of work for real stonemasons because it's so much easier to put the stone veneer on. You know, it's basically set it up there and glue it. You also can use mounting screws, especially if you're mounting it to wood. It's a whole lot easier. I'll be mounting the center block and concrete, so I'll have to use masonry screws to put them in there, and I'll not only glue it, but I'll use masonry screws in the, if I'm not mistaken, the areas that you use the screws on each of these panels are depicted, so they have specific places that you put your screws, and I don't ever want to fool with this again, so I'm gonna get it, you know, I'm gonna do it right, and also use the screws to mount it, and not just rely on glue. You know, glue over time will break down with the weather, and screws won't. So it'll be mounted using both methods, glue and screws. They are telling me that it is pliable. Now, I have talked to several manufacturers of this veneer stone, and at 5 manufacturers, 4 of them said that their panels are not you know, bendable. They don't form around edges. And Antico Elements said that theirs is not only flexible, they can actually wrap a pole with it. And so I don't need anything with that tight of radius, so this shouldn't be a problem at all. This radius here is slightly past 90 degrees. If I had to guess, I'd say it's probably about 98 to 100 degree radius. But my arm's getting tired. I had to switch hands. Just wanted to catch you guys up. I think I've decided to put my light probably right here in this front corner. My wife is wanting it back in the middle, about where it was, but I really think it's going to look better up front here. I'm not 100% certain on it, but you should be able to see it. It's back here, propped up against the porch. I'll be taking it apart, cleaning it up, repainting it, pulling all the lenses and everything out of it, get them all cleaned up. I've had that lamp for several years, probably 7-8 years now, and never one time have I had to replace a bulb in it. It has the I forget exactly the terminology, but it's the curly Q, you know, energy saving bulb, and it has been on 4 hours a day, 365 days a year since probably the middle of 2012, and never have I had to replace a bulb in it. So, you know, do with that what you want. They work very well. But that's all I've got for you today, and as things start changing, I'll start shooting more videos. I appreciate you stopping in, and if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that bell button, and we'll see you the next go around.